Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Canto 9, Chapter 4, Text 48. As fire in the forest immediately burns to ashes an angry snake, so by the previous order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his disc, the Sudarshan Chakra, immediately burned to ashes the created demon to protect the Lord's devotee. This is a repeated theme throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam and throughout all the narrations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that the Lord protects His devotees. Especially in this material world, there are always difficulties. Even in the spiritual world there are difficulties. Not actually difficulties, but for the sake of the Lord's pastimes, there are different obstructions. But especially in this material world, there are always problems. Someone said to me the other day, they came asking for some advice, saying that they were expecting some difficulties. What do you advise? So I said, first of all, it's good that you're expecting difficulties. At least you should know. That is the situation of this material world. There's always difficulty. There's no avoiding difficulty in this material world, whatever arrangements you make. The whole material society, the present-day society, is simply set up to make comfort and facilities. So we have electricity and running water and fans in the summer and heated water in the winter. But to get those facilities, people have to work so hard, and they get more discomfort by working hard to get the facilities. It's like I just came from Dubai, and there everyone lives in air-conditioned existence. There's hardly any homes. Everyone lives in apartments. Every apartment, every shop, every car, everything is air-conditioned. But people have to work up till 9 o'clock at night, so they can work in an air-conditioned shop or apartment, and then come home in an air-conditioned car to go to sleep in an air-conditioned room. So they have the facility, but what for? Facilities to work hard like asses. So what is the benefit? The Bhagavatam gives the example that just like someone tries to solve their difficulty, it's just like they're carrying a weight on one shoulder, so they move it to the other shoulder. There's some sense of relief, but actually the same problem is there, just in another way, that's all. So this material world is full of difficulties, and for a devotee, that difficulty is an impetus to go back to Godhead. Sometimes people come to devotional service thinking that I have so many difficulties, let me take to Krishna consciousness. Then Krishna says, I'll take away all your difficulties. Aham tvang sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami. So let me take to devotional service and all my difficulties will go away. But then they find out that there's always difficulties, even in devotional life. So they complain, what's the use of chanting Hare Krishna? I have so many difficulties. But you see here, those who are the greatest devotees, they have the greatest difficulties. Here we see Maharaj Ambarish. He was just doing his religious duty. He was a king, and he did some special austerity by which he was fasting, and he hadn't done any harm to anyone, but somehow this Durvasa just came along, and without any warning, all of a sudden he was you can understand, he was just following his brata, and then what to do? Durvasa didn't come back. He was supposed to feed him, but he had to break his fast, so he took a little water, which is, it could be said from one point of view you could say that's breaking the fast. On the other side, he's not eating, so Durvasa Muni shouldn't have been, you know the story, right? That he was about to break his fast. It had to be done at a certain time to fulfill his religious vow. He'd been fasting. So Durvasa Muni came at that time, and as an exalted guest, he had to be fed before Ambarish Maharaj could eat. So Durvasa Muni went away to take his bath, but he didn't come back in time. So in the meantime, the time for breaking the fast to fulfill his religious vow was approaching. So Ambarish Maharaj's ministers advised him that you drink a little water, because that could be considered to be breaking the fast. On the other side, it's not actually eating, so it could be considered that you didn't take any food before Durvasa Muni came, because if he ate before Durvasa Muni came, that would also be an offense. His exalted guest has come and he's eating before him. So Durvasa Muni came back But he was extremely upset that Ambarish Maharaj had taken some water. I mean, it's a very minor thing, but he got extremely upset and said that he took the symbolism of it is that he's saying that, well, you broke your fast, that means you don't care about me, you're not treating me properly as a guest. I'm a rishi, you have to treat me properly. So when I say he was extremely upset, really was extremely upset, because he sent, like, tearing out his hair, throw it on the ground, and by his mystic potency created a demon to destroy Ambarish Maharaj. I mean, really out of proportion, you could say. I mean, he could chastise him or something. I mean, even that wasn't called for. It was on the advice of his Brahmin ministers, he had simply drunk a little water. So, at the most, you could imagine that he might verbally chastise him. But he didn't only get upset, but he called a demon to kill him. Imagine his very, very angry nature. So he called the demon to kill him. But Ambarish Maharaj was such a devotee, he wasn't disturbed. This is the test of a self-realized person. In the face of death even, he's not disturbed. Because he knows he's not this body. I have to leave this body sometime. It's quite a normal thing to die. So alright, if I'm going to die like this, alright, what's the difference? So that's the sign of his self-realization. But even though he didn't take any measures to protect himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was protecting him. And therefore the Sudarshan Chakra, which is the personal weapon of the Supreme Lord, immediately extinguished or burnt that demon to pieces. And later we'll find out he chased Durvasa Muni also for being such an offender. Now, the point here is the Lord's protection. The Lord protects His devotees. Even though they go through many difficulties, they're always protected. So this is the story we see again and again in Ram Leela, in Mahabharata, throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a repeated theme. How Prahlad Maharaj was protected, how Dhruva Maharaj, his devotional service, he was rejected by his own father, but he was not only protected from the insult of his father, but he was promoted to a position far greater than he could imagine. In Vrindavan, Krishna was again and again protecting the inhabitants by killing all the demons that came to attack. He swallowed the forest fire. He rescued Nanda Maharaj from the clutches of Varuna. He brought back the dead sons of Devaki. He brought back the dead son of his teacher, Sandipani Muni. He brought back the children that had expired, Brahmana in Dwarka, to protect his devotee Arjuna, who was otherwise going to enter the fire. Hare Virakshitam. Kunti Devi is praying to Krishna, please protect us. Always protect. So this is one of the symptoms of Krishna's relationship with his devotee, that he is supremely powerful. Jivas, they're not. So even though one may be a devotee of the Lord, if he's in this material world, then other living beings may give so much trouble, but Krishna protects. He takes special care. Samaham sarvabhuteshu namadveshustu napriyaha. Krishna says, I'm equal to everyone. But whoever, Krishna says, approaches me in devotion, then I take special care of him. You see, there are so many jivas in this material world, but Krishna especially looks after those who perform his devotional service. So you may say that, well, Ambarish Maharaj, he was a very great devotee. What about me? Krishna going to protect me? Yes. Here in this purport, Prabhupada says that from the very beginning of devotional service, the protection begins. And we see that actually in so many cases that our devotees, they're protected in so many ways. It's amazing how Krishna, there are so many instances where Especially if a devotee is very seriously trying to serve the Lord. Krishna, you can see Krishna's hand, how he protects them from difficult situations and he arranges for the preaching activities to go on. So, of course, it's not that devotees don't die, they also leave this body, and there have been devotees who died or left their bodies in unusual circumstances. We shouldn't take that protection for granted. Just like, for instance, sometimes devotees, they drive very fast or carelessly, and if you say something that devotees should drive more carefully, say, no, when I got in the car, I already said Nrsimha mantra, so it doesn't matter. Well, what is that? Do you mean that now you said Nrsimha mantra, and you think you can drive like a fool, and Lord Nrsimhadev is duty bound to protect you? No, it doesn't mean expecting Krishna's protection doesn't mean that we act foolishly. It's like you see, Krishna was protecting Arjuna on the battlefield, but he also gave him relevant instructions how to fight. He didn't just tell Arjuna, all right, I'm protecting you. You go to sleep on this chariot, and I will do everything else. You see, when at the end of the battle, when Krishna got down from the chariot, he told Arjuna, you also get down. So he got down, and then vroom, the whole chariot burned in an instant. So Arjuna asked, how is that? What happened? How did that happen? So Krishna said that, well, there were so many weapons that were shot at your chariot, deadly weapons. So now they just all took their effect. So Arjuna asked, well, why didn't they take effect before? Because I was protected. Now there's no need. So, boom, all burned to pieces. So Krishna was protecting, but at the same time, he had Arjuna fight. And Arjuna had to go through many difficulties in the fight. When it became too much, then only Krishna intervened. When Bhishma attacked Arjuna so strongly, taking the vow that Krishna will have to break his vow not to fight. Either that or I'm going to kill Arjuna. So at that point, because Krishna has different duties. One duty is not to break his promise. He made a promise not to fight. Another duty is, he already made a promise to always protect his devotees. Kaunteya pratijanahi name bhakta pranashati. He already told Arjuna, that you declare it, that my devotee is never vanquished. So he already asked Arjuna to declare that. Now either Krishna's promise not to fight is going to be broken, or Arjuna's promise. Krishna told Arjuna, you declare it, that my devotee is never vanquished. So either Krishna's promise not to fight is going to be broken, or Arjuna's promise that Krishna would always protect his devotees, that was going to be vanquished. So Krishna thought it's better that I may get a bad name for breaking my promise, but Arjuna, he should not get a bad name for breaking his promise. So Krishna, he puts the welfare of his devotees above everything. That is the moral of this. Now, from the very beginning that protection begins, means that as soon as we take the devotional service seriously, Krishna's protection is there. Now, I gave that example of driving fast, but we also have to be careful ourselves. But that, again, we shouldn't take for granted Krishna's protection. That means we lost the devotional mood. The devotee, he doesn't try to disturb Krishna. You see here that Ambarish Maharaj, even though he was attacked by Durvasa Muni, he didn't disturb Krishna. Krishna, come and save me. So, seeing that situation, Krishna automatically wanted to save him. Actually, saving or not saving, it doesn't depend upon the position of the material body. Even if Ambarish Maharaj had been burned, had been destroyed by that demon, Krishna would have certainly taken him to him. But he had something for Ambarish Maharaj to do in this world. Otherwise the Pandavas, you see, Krishna could have advised them, it would seem to be much better advice, much more saintly advice, that the Pandavas, they didn't want to fight. So Krishna could have told them, well, just tolerate. Why should you bother messing about with these nonsense people? You simply live in the forest and chant Hare Krishna and don't bother about the kingdom. Why should you bother? Krishna could have told the Pandavas that. He's saying, no. You should go through all difficulties to reclaim your kingdom. Why? Because Krishna wanted his devotee to be the ruler, so the people would benefit. So Krishna protected the Pandavas in so many ways because he wanted to establish him on the throne. Ishan Mahagne Purusha Adata Shanaka Satsabhaya Vanavas Kuchicha Midhe Midhe Neka Neka Dashvita Jonashridis Chasma Harevi Akshita. Kunti Devi said that he protected us from poison. Bhimsen was poisoned. Ishan Mahagne, the great fire in the lac house, was set on fire. They had some entanglement with a man-eating Rakshasa more than once. Once with Hidimban here and his sister Hidimba. So there was danger. Then again, they were in Ekchakra village and there was some, each family had to give one member of their family to one Rakshasa regularly. So Bhima went and instead of being eaten by the Rakshasa, he killed him. It was very dangerous. And they had the very most heart-rending experience in the assembly hall where Yudhishthira Maharaj was called to gamble. They lost everything. And they had to live in the forest for 12 years. So many difficulties. The fight, the Kurukshetra war. They had no hope. If you saw the situation, there was no hope for the Pandavas. Because they only had 5 Akshayanis and the other party had 7. They were much outnumbered. And all the best fighters were on the Kuru side. On the Pandava side, there was Arjuna and Bhima. They were good fighters. But they were nothing in comparison to, especially Bhishma and Drona, and even Karna he was actually more than Arjuna, more capable. Of course, the Pandavas also had Abhimanyu, who was more than Arjuna, his own father, but they didn't know that until he started fighting. So the best fighters were on the side of the Kurus. Actually, the best fighter of all, everyone knew, was Krishna, and he was on the Pandava side, but he had vowed not to fight. So they had no hope. There was no hope. But Jayastu Pandu Putranam Yisham Pakshe Janardana. The Pandavas are always successful because Krishna is on their side. Even though Krishna was not fighting, he was on their side. Therefore, despite all difficulties, despite being outnumbered, they were certain to be successful because Krishna wanted them to be successful. So this is the faith of a devotee, that despite all difficulties, if I keep my faith in Krishna, Krishna will certainly protect me. In our devotional life, we have so many difficulties. We're struggling with the mind and the senses, we're struggling with tiredness and heat and so many different things. There's so many struggles. But we should have faith that if we stick to this process, Krishna will certainly protect us. He will protect our devotional service, and He will make the arrangement by which we can go back to Godhead. Now in the spiritual world, there are not difficulties like that. So that is our aim, to go to that place where there is no difficulty. That is called Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means no anxiety. So that is the aim of the devotees. That let us tolerate all difficulties in this material world, go on serving Krishna, and certainly Krishna will be kind to us. That is the faith of the devotee. Tatena kampansu samikshimano bhunjana ivatma katang vidakam hridvaga videva vidhananaste jivetayo mukti padesa daya bhav. This is the mood of a devotee who is preparing to go back to Godhead, who is certain to go back to Godhead. Lord Brahma says that anyone who goes on suffering in this material world without complaining, just like Ambarish Maharaj, considering that whatever sufferings I have, that is simply due to my past karma, but at the same time, in the midst of all difficult situations, goes on with his devotional service. He doesn't become angry that, who is this Krishna? I'm serving him and I'm having so many difficulties. But he just accepts it and goes on with his service. Such a devotee is certain to go back to Godhead. Because, as Prabhupada says, it has become his rightful inheritance. Just like someone whose parents die, he inherits the property. So for a devotee who has this faith in Krishna, that Krishna will always protect me, Krishna will always help me, let me go on serving Krishna despite all difficulties. So someone who has such faith, then Krishna becomes extremely pleased with him, and Krishna promises, in this verse quoted, that he will certainly take such a devotee back to Godhead. So this is a valuable lesson for us all to learn, because there are so many difficulties in this material world. And it's not, we may make so many adjustments this way and that. But you see, now it's very hot. It's hot season. Hot season in India means hot. So it's a difficulty. Sometimes there's cold season. That's also a difficulty. And there may be so many disturbances, health problem, mental problem, financial problem. There's so many problems. But a devotee keeps his faith. All right. He doesn't neglect the problem. Just like Arjuna, he didn't neglect the problem. He had to fight. So he didn't neglect the problem, but at the same time, he always remembers that Krishna is helping me. Krishna will surely help me. By such faith, he becomes a pure devotee, and he becomes eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. Is there any question? Right, okay, so the question is, what about those devotees who they commit offenses? Are they still protected by Krishna? They may be according to the degree of their offense and the degree of their background of devotional service. If they've done a lot of devotional service, they make a little offense. Krishna, you won't be pleased with that. And certainly their devotional service will come back to peg. But Krishna doesn't reject someone unless they perform a very severe offense. So definitely offenses will impede our advancement. Should be very careful. Offenses, if they become very serious, they will halt our advancement. And of course, if we develop a critical mentality, if we start making small offenses lead to big offenses. So we should be very careful. We can't expect Krishna's protection if we offend other devotees, because he has to protect the other devotee from the offensive, from our offensiveness. Any other question? See, actually, who is a devotee, if he's actually developing his love for Krishna, then he sees all other beings, and especially devotees, as part and parcel of Krishna. So it means he's actually not properly developing. That's described by Kapila Dev, that a neophyte devotee is a separatist. He sees myself and Krishna, and that's it. He doesn't see anybody else. So he's actually a very neophyte devotee. Neophyte means prakrita bhakta. It means he's still on the material platform. He's doing some devotional service, but he's still on the neophyte platform. So the neophyte devotees, they don't fully come under the shelter of Krishna's internal potency, because they're still trying to enjoy the external potency. Mahatma nastumam paja, daiving prakriti nashita. Those who are Mahatmas, those who are real devotees, they take shelter of the internal potency. So generally, those who are actually serious about devotional service, they don't make offenses. It's not a normal thing. In the neophyte stage, we may do that out of bad habit. Our past way of thinking is to put others down and criticize others. So the neophyte devotee is always in a dangerous position. He can fall at any time due to material attachments on one side and offenses on the other. So from the very beginning we should be warned about this. You see what trouble Durvasa Muni got into. He was also a great personality. Not exactly a devotee, but he was a great personality, but he really got in a lot of trouble. That was also Krishna's mercy on him.